The Uganda's central bank has left the country's benchmark lending rate unchanged at 9.75%, announcing the decision of the Monetary Policy Committee earlier today. The central bank governor, Michael Atingi-Ego, says the whole decision reflects the committee's view of the risks to inflation outlook, as core inflation in Uganda rose to 3.9% last month. Let's listen.
On 13th of May 2025, the Monetary Policy Committee, that's MPC, of the Bank of Uganda, maintained the central bank rate CBR at 9.75%. This decision reflects heightened global risks despite the inflation outlook remaining around the target. Over the past year, the annual headline inflation averaged 3.4%, while the core inflation averaged 3.9%, remaining below the medium-term target of 5%. This subdued inflation has been supported by prudent monetary policy, a stable exchange rate, global disinflation, and favorable food and energy prices. In April 2025, the headline and the core inflations edged up to 3.5% and 3.9% from 3.4% and 3.6% in March 2025, respectively. These increases were primarily driven by higher prices for services and other goods. The inflation outlook remains broadly aligned with the February 2025 forecast, with slightly lower projections in the near term due to a more stable exchange rate and declining global oil prices. Core inflation is expected to average between 4.5% and 5% in the financial year 2025/2026 and to converge to the 5% target over the medium term. This outlook, however, is subject to risks. The upside risks include stronger domestic demand, particularly from increased investments in the extractive sector and more effective government implementation of its programs. Also, the escalation of the geopolitical tensions and the new trade restrictions that could disrupt global supply chains. Adverse weather conditions also could affect food production, while exchange rate depreciation due to global uncertainty and financial market volatility also poses an upside risks. The downside risks include a further appreciation of the exchange rate that could be supported by stronger capital inflows, especially into the oil and the gas sectors. And then the weaker than expected demand relative to supply, both globally and domestically. Improved agricultural production due to favorable weather. And also continued declines in the global commodity and energy prices, and slower growth in major economies, easing external inflationary pressures. While inflation remains contained, the balance of risks suggests a greater likelihood of upward pressures in the near term. Turning to economic activity, this remains resilient. Despite the global uncertainties, including renewed geopolitical tensions and the new trade tariff environment, the business sentiments have remained broadly positive. According to the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, UBOS, real GDP grew by an average of 6% in the first half of financial year 2024/2025. This is an improvement over the same period in financial year 2023/2024, though slightly below the 6.6% growth recorded in the second half of the financial year 2023/2024. The recovery in household spending, supported by rising real income, has contributed to this growth. The growth projections for financial year 2024/25 remain at between 6 and 6.5%, with expectations of reaching 7% in the outer years. This outlook is supported by improved agricultural and industrial activity, increased investments, particularly in the extractive sector, and continued implementation of government initiatives such as the Parish Development Model, PDM. The current pace of growth suggests that activity is approaching capacity limits. Further acceleration of growth could lead to demand outstripping supply and therefore adding to inflationary pressures. This growth outlook also is subject to risks. The downside risks include disruptions to the global supply chains due to trade tensions, geo-economic fragmentation, or changes in the shipping routes. Also, weaker external demand due to slower global growth and policy uncertainty is another factor, together with tighter global financial conditions reversing the easing observed in late 2024. On the upside, the risks include accelerated investment in the extractive sector, supportive government policies and accommodative domestic financial conditions, and positive trade negotiations, stronger tourism, and pro-growth policies in major economies.